Hello and welcome to We Will Manage, the podcast exploring the weird and wonderful world of work. We are two young professionals figuring out our careers one conversation at a time.
Today, we're talking about getting screwed over in business. So stick around to know when it's time to call a lawyer, how half the time we're over-delivering for free, and how to deal with someone taking credit for your work.
I'm in a magazine.
God. Oh my God, that's so cool. Is that a picture of a magazine?
Yes.
Like a printed magazine?
Yeah, so this is the guy who is like the editor of the magazine. There was an issue and it was supposed to come out at the end of March. And when I was going to be going to Marbella, so I said, oh, like, is it out yet? I would love to like get a copy. And he said, no, there's been an issue. I'll let you know when I've got it. So because of that, he's just sent me a photo like while we were recording. I can't wait. I
Are you going to get a copy?
Yeah, I need to go to Marbella now.
Oh, that's so cool.
So exciting.
We watched one of these quiz shows where they ask. I told you about it before. It's a French general knowledge.
I was going to say, it's a French, yeah.
Question quiz show thing that he loves. He's very good at. And they do like daily episodes, which is pretty hardcore. There's an episode every single day.
That's
and
crazy.
Maybe not on weekends, I don't know. And sometimes the players give away the game on the fact that they recorded beforehand, because there's always one player that stays on. So like yesterday we were watching one and the lady was like, oh yeah, we talked about that earlier, and the presenter, because it's kind of live, and the presenter, I mean, they don't edit it, and the presenter's like, yeah, remember last week? Last week we did talk about this. Oh yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, it's guys, we're busy people. We record when we can for however long we can. Yeah, we do this for hours on end.
Yes.
No wonder we get loopy by the end of it.
Yeah, it's like some episodes were all over the place. Sorry. I also realized I didn't tell you before, but that's good because that way different content for today's episode.
Different intro.
That last week, I don't know if I told you, I might have mentioned it when we did our last recording, I'm not sure. But last week, me and my employee went and did a talk at a university.
Oh, that's so cool. Think of all the people you've inspired.
I know. It was crazy to be talking in front of a classroom again. No, actually, it was in Malaga as well, but it was a private university. It's the one that Patricia went to. Oh, so they don't have a public university here for they do all sorts of design, but she obviously did interior design there, but they also do graphic design. It's a design school, and inside of that they have lots of different ones. So yeah, it was an experience. You're like, what the hell did we talk about? But it was really fun. It was really fun. I will.
Did they just want you to talk about what you did? And
yeah, as a you say in Spanish, but I don't think it's something you say in English, a young business. Not referring to me being young, just a new business, a new company, like a young company born in Malaga.
Like a startup, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you would just say maybe startup in English.
I don't know what a startup actually is.
Yeah, basically just people from Malaga starting their own company in Malaga to do a design. Come and talk to us about it. And yeah. It went at first it was like, do they care? Like we had no idea the people in front of us.
How old were the people you were talking to?
We were trying to figure it out while we were waiting to start. I mean, obviously, so you passed 18, but we were like, So I think there was a big mix.
Far.
I think there was a big mix because there were some people that looked like they could be like early 20s. But then there were some people that looked like barely 18. So I think there was a mix, and I think there also was a mix of different degrees. Because the first thing I was like, so we're a branding studio. Does anyone even know or care about branding? Do you know what it is? Do you care about it? But yeah, by the end of it, we had a few like activities for them to do, and they were really getting into it and stuff. So it was. I think they enjoyed it.
So cool.
Yeah,
Did
was
you get
very fun.
Questions? Did people ask you questions?
Well, we were trying to get them to ask questions, and they did ask a few. I at some point when I started talking about starting my own business, I was like, so does anyone here want to start their own business. Is this something that anyone's interested in? But everyone, as is normal, was like all shy and stuff. So I did end saying, if anybody wants to ask us anything, like, feel absolutely free to do so on our, you know, social media or whatever. That was just the easiest. Because it was like, it was up on the screen, Cosa Studio.
Yeah,
so
it's less scary.
The same, exactly. It's exactly like, it's just Cosa Studio, like the name as you're seeing it on the screen now is what we are on Instagram. And a few of them did follow, so you never know. They might ask. But and then they were saying afterwards how, if, as in the like director of the school and stuff, were saying that if we were interested, that we could join their like internship program and have interns, which could be really interesting down the line.
That's so cool.
I feel like right now it's like not quite there yet, but it could be really interesting. I have no idea what it means. I have no idea.
It means cheap labor. That's what it means.
Cheap or free. It depends, I think, on the internship. But I don't know if it's something that I pay, or does the state pay, or does the school pay. I don't know who pays when it is paid. I think it depends on the internship. But yeah, so that was like, oh, okay.
Maybe you could get people. I mean, I think younger people are always the interest is they're generally quite kind of
eager
apart from everything, and they might have new ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
But then again, you're pretty young yourself, so I don't know if you really need that.
But it's always interesting to have other perspectives. But yeah, I was thinking about it, and I think, yeah, definitely, it would definitely have to be a 3-month internship. I think anything less than that is just way, like, a lot of work for us and not much gain. Obviously, ideal is 6 months. I think 6 months is where, I think from 3 months onwards is where you would really actually start to benefit as a company. But yeah, it was interesting. So
cool.
Yeah. I will give our producer a photo of that to put up on our socials.
Super cool. I mean, also, if you were ever thinking of getting another hire, like hiring somebody new.
Yes.
Because you need them to work on a specific thing. It's a great way to like train somebody.
Yeah.
And get to know them.
Absolutely.
Especially if it's an internship at the end of their degree.
Yeah. And then if it was just like we started to get a lot of work and it maybe wasn't quite worth getting a third person, so maybe like doing an internship. It's definitely interesting, and it's something that I'd not thought about, but I don't know. It, like when I was going to hire, it was like one of the options of like what kind of contract is it, and one of them was an internship contract, which I was obviously like no, but yeah, could be cool. And they were like really open to it. They were like, yeah, it would be great. And especially, you know, to just get like creative, like Malaga people like in, so that if they do want to stay in Malaga, they've got the option. And so that, who knows what could come of that.
So cool.
No.
All the things that can happen in the future, eh?
I know. Right. Let's jump in. Unless there's anything you would like to say.
I'm drinking Moroccan tea today.
You're still out of milk?
Yeah. Nobody went to the shops yet.
Go.
I was talking to our friend in common, Patricia, earlier. About
she sent me loads of messages actually while we were recording. I don't know exactly what about, but yeah.
She's had a moment today. She had a moment.
Has she? Well, that's probably what she's
I guess if she sent a load of messages to both of us. But,
yeah.
Maybe it was yesterday I was talking to her. Anyway, I was talking to her about how I love that she currently sees the like world of opportunity that is the world. And like, I think it's such a beautiful way of looking at it. Like, I see that too. I think there's so many different things we could do and so many different ways that we can put our energy into different projects, and also 10 gazillion ways of finding a way to be happy.
Absolutely.
So I was talking to her about that because I didn't want her to put too much pressure on, this whole world of possibilities. Now I have to choose my way. And I was saying, we spoke with the podcast the other day. Alba said that, nothing's forever. You still have time to change a gazillion times. And there's so many different ways that you could find a way to be happy. Yeah. And like, whatever she chooses, she's going to find a way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to not put too much pressure on it. But yeah, this vision of the world of possibilities. It's just a beautiful way of looking at it.
So, yeah, totally. And whenever I, for whatever reason, like feel like I'm getting like overwhelmed maybe with it, because like you say, there's like such a fine line. It's because there is such a fine line between fear and excitement. It's like, which one is it? So you just choose excitement. Just be like, no, I'm actually excited. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. That's what my mum always used to say when I was, oh, Mum, I'm nervous about the dance competition. No, you're not nervous. You're excited.
You're excited.
Like, Mum, no, I'm nervous.
No. These are definitely nerves.
You're excited. Oh, you don't understand.
Siempre igual. So today we are talking about not getting screwed over, or about getting screwed over, and how to avoid it, how to navigate
it.
In business, yeah. I mean,
in general.
Really, honestly, probably a lot of this advice could be extrapolated into personal life. So yeah, very, very possibly just general advice. But yeah, standing up for yourself and how to navigate it, how to learn from it, I think for me is the biggest thing. That is fine. We all make mistakes. We made a mistake with our previous episode. We re-recorded it. It's fine. It's fine. It's just to learn from it and move on, I think. But yeah, we're going to start off with a little game. 2 truths and a lie.
Ooh.
So the ones that I've chosen, a lot of them are, we were talking a bit about, that's why I said it in the previous episode about with percentages and with not research, statistics and these like tests and studies and that with some of these things it's like we know it's over 50 but we don't really know the specific statistic and all that. So it's just to get us in the mood, really. So 2 truths and a lie. I'm going to read you 3 things and you've got to tell me which one you think is the lie. Number 1, over a quarter of employees say they feel unappreciated at work. 2, most workers believe their managers know how they want to be recognized. 3, the majority of workers say they would work harder if they felt more valued.
2 is a lie.
2?
Yeah.
That is correct. So in reality, over 50% of employees say that they want more recognition from their managers, and many feel misunderstood or overlooked when it comes to how they're appreciated.
Doesn't surprise me. And it's such a big thing.
It's such a big thing. And I feel like with everything we talk about, I feel like it comes down to, but like we're going to talk a lot about it in this episode, expectations. And it's just when you assume things on both ends and you just, that's your reality, and it's so your reality that you just assume it's the other person's reality as well.
Yeah.
And it's not.
I think about feeling appreciated by your manager. I think it's so important for a manager to make a point of it, because I think it's really easy for a manager to be like, okay, you did that, next thing, you know, like, great, we got that done, next thing. Yeah. And to not stop and pause and be like, brilliant work on that. Yeah. You did a really good job. I'm really happy of this because of this, that, and the other. Yeah. And instead of just moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. And to not just,
it's really hard to do,
talk with your employees or whatever when something's gone wrong, you know, to it not just be a, why has this not happened? To it be a, like you say, every now and again, be like, well done on that, you know? And it's so easy to just expect that, you know, to go right, that you only kind of discuss.
As a given. Yeah,
exactly. And it's just not how it should be. But I feel like it's something that you do have to like check yourself on. I think anybody it's not something that you do in a, like,
and in a mean way.
In a mean way. No, exactly. Yeah, I think it's very normal. I've got so many clients that I'll send them something and they're like, this is wrong. And it's like, okay, like, wow, nothing positive to say.
Okay. You have to like take a breath and be like, okay.
Yeah. But then they'll be like, oh my God, I absolutely love it. Oh my God. But, you know, they're just like, oh, but it's not perfect because of these things, you know? And there's also the thing of, that I saw the other day that was like, you don't always realize the progress you're making because you keep raising the bar. So it's like, you know, 2 years ago where you are now, you would have thought it was amazing kind of thing. But then as you're there now, you now expect more. So it's like taking that moment to be like, no, I'm good. I've done good.
Yeah.
Right. Second one. Number one, over 70% of freelancers have had trouble collecting payment. Number two, after unpaid time is factored in, it says gig workers, it's things like photographers, people earn less than €3 an hour. And three, most freelancers say they feel more secure than full-time employees.
Ooh. I think the 3 is a lie.
Yeah, so this is one where the statistics aren't there to back it up, but from there hasn't been a study about it, but yeah, when just talking with freelancers and stuff, most of them report having less financial security than salary paid workers.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
but the other two statistics are tough, huh?
Yeah, and sad. Yeah.
It actually surprises me as I get to know business world a little bit more, and I see all of the different aspects of my company. Even as an established, I mean, it's a small company, but it's an established company that works business to business.
Yeah.
Even we struggle to get some clients to pay, and some of these clients are like massive supermarkets. It just blows my mind that that's a thing.
Absolutely. It's absolutely crazy. And most of my stories come from that. Most of my things are getting screwed over with things like payment. And I was surprised to learn it was that much, 70%. It's crazy. And it kind of leads into the next one. Most people who get taken advantage of in business blame themselves more than the other party. 2, 1 in 2 freelancers has taken legal action against a client. 3, scope creep. Do you know what scope creep is? I didn't know what it was.
No.
Before I started.
Oh, is it when the scope slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger without that having been the original?
It basically is the same as over delivering for free. Okay. It's slowly, you slowly things get added on, whether it's someone who works in a company or a freelancer, doesn't matter. Things are getting added on to your workload without what you are getting paid changing.
Your job is so hard. I don't think I could do your job.
The last one, and I'll read them again because we got a bit distracted, but the last one is scope creep. No, because scope creep, I didn't know what it was. I kept seeing it referenced and I was like, what is scope creep? So it's basically over delivering for free. Scope creep is one of the most common reasons freelancers feel disrespected or undervalued. So the 3 of them were: 1, most people who get taken advantage of in business blame themselves more than the other party. 2, 1 in 2 freelancers, so half of freelancers, 50% of freelancers, have taken legal action against the client. 3, scope creep is one of the most common reasons freelancers feel disrespected or undervalued.
I feel like number 3 is definitely true. I think number 1 is true, as in I think that's what people should think, but is that necessarily the case? I'm going to say number 2 is a lie. I think that's a big proportion. Even if people maybe should, I don't think
even though
they all get
70% of freelancers have had trouble collecting payment.
Yeah, exactly.
While many want to take legal action, only a small fraction actually do, due to, which is interesting, time, cost, and emotional toll.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I totally understand that.
So it's easier to just let it go, lose the money.
Recently, I saw people in my company having to take legal action against a client. So we're talking B2B here.
Yeah.
And just to start that process, they had to pay over 100 francs.
Oh yeah.
And the payment that they're going for isn't even that big. It wasn't a massive client. It was maybe they bought a few roll bags,
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I feel like there's so many things within the legal system which doesn't favor the person in the right, in so many different aspects, not just in work, where I've seen it a lot because of my parents is in real estate. So squatters having loads of rights, and if it's your house, you like have none. And just like crazy things like that. And I think things like this of like, if you're completely in the right, you have a contract and the other person has broken it, following that up legally is so tough. And most people, it's like, I just can't either, because of, if you have a full-time business, a time of days you'd have to take off to do it, cost, again, if you have your own business, it's just something that maybe just doesn't make sense for the amount of money that you're losing. And then, emotionally, I mean, any kind of lawsuit, any court thing is always just so tough.
Yeah.
So
that's something
even though
also that's really surprising to me. Like when you're setting up a contract, depending on the situation, you often have to take into account, okay, it's all very well that I set up this contract. Depending on who I'm up against here, am I even going to be able to reinforce it?
Yeah.
And
it's like crazy.
It's crazy. And like having to take that into account while you're setting up that situation, setting up that contract. What can you do other than have a solid contract to ensure that you're not going to have to reinforce it? Because if you do, you're not going to be able to afford it. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's just craziness. It's just like there's something wrong, and I don't know what it is, but something's not. Something's just not. No. So basically, when I was thinking about this episode and kind of everything that I wanted to talk about and how to approach it, because I feel like there's obviously so many ways you can get screwed over in business. It's just, or in life in general. What did it really kind of come down to? And I've put 3 things, but we already kind of mentioned beforehand that they're all basically the same thing and it's all down to one. But yeah, I've put bad contracts, unclear expectations, and fuzzy boundaries, where a big part of the fuzzy boundaries is the scope creep. Just one more thing or whatever. So it can be in so many different situations and can mean so many different things, but it all basically is unclear expectations. They're normally unclear because you haven't got a good contract or a contract at all, and then they normally lead to fuzzy boundaries because you don't quite know.
I guess you can have like unclear expectations, clear expectations, but have a bad contract to back it up. I guess that is a possibility. I do think having a good contract with no loopholes and having thought of everything is really important. Yeah. And I'm probably getting ahead of myself in the topics we're going to discuss, but I think something that I find really interesting in the business world, when you're setting up a company, there's so many contracts and it's so easy to be like, oh, do we really need that? Or you'll have the people that you're supposed to set that contract up with that'll be like, oh, that's just going to take time. It's not worth our time. It's a waste of time, and we could be putting that energy into something more productive for what we're working on. Or, oh no, we don't like. And it's so important to go against that and at least set up a contract.
Absolutely. And it can be like in a way that's like huge red flag because they're trying to do something cheeky or whatever. But it also can just come from a place of everyone that's here working, we all trust each other, it's going to be fine. And it can come from like that kind of good place. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be like an evil, like, oh, I'm not going to set up a contract so that if I have to get out of it, it's easy, because it might be that person then who ends up, losing, but in the situation. But I think that a good contract, it's something I've learned the hard way, I think is always necessary. And I think especially, I feel like the more you trust someone, the more necessary it is. Because if you trust someone, it's because you know them, you have a relationship with them. And I feel like having a clear contract where everyone knows what's what and how it's all going to go is just going to make things so much easier down the line to avoid ruining the relationship you have with that person, which is the reason you trust them. And it can be really awkward if someone's like, no, it's fine. I don't think we need a contract, to be like, nah, I think we do. I would like a contract.
It can be super awkward because if they have that point of view, they think, oh, do you not trust me? Like, what do you think? why do you think we need a contract?
Why do you think we need a contract?
Just, you know,
to make sure everyone knows what's what. Like when we had like our second call to set up this podcast, and I don't even know who brought it up, but we were a bit like, I think you started doing this. You were like, what do you guys think of and I was like, contract? Yes. Let's do it. It's a nice way to go over all of the things that you might not have thought of. And not thought of, and just your expectations, because like I say, your reality and what you in your own head, like this has happened to me in like so many different areas of life, with family, with my partner, with that you have been thinking about this and have been, you know, so you've got this whole storyline going on in your head, and the other person has maybe not even thought about it, so it isn't even like, hasn't even given it a moment's thought as to if it is going to be like that or not going to be like that, or if they prefer like this or like that, and what they're going to do, what you're going to do. They haven't even thought about it. So you're like, well, of course they're going to do that, and I'm going to do this because that's how it makes sense. Have you talked about it? You know, those like assuming and having those expectations, I think it's just very dangerous. And obviously, as soon as we've got in the books to do an episode all about working with friends and family, but I think, like I said, the closer you are with someone, the more important it is to just be very clear so that you can keep it separate. You know, this is work, and it's not going to let us, we're not going to let it affect our personal relationship in any way.
Yeah. So let's all go Sheldon Cooper and make what's it?
Roommate agreements.
Relationship agreements. I'm going to make a contract for my partner tomorrow.
Definitely.
But honestly, it's kind of like, obviously you're not going to take legal action, but it's a good thing to like put things down on paper. And
to fall back on, to be like, when you are in a tricky situation, to be like, okay, what have we agreed? Yeah, what have we agreed in regards to this? Because it could be situations that, especially if you have a previous relationship with that person and then you start doing something that's very different, it takes adjusting. So I think it does just avoid so many tricky and awkward situations. And then normally, if you start off by creating a good contract, I feel like that then helps there not be unclear expectations and helps there not be fuzzy boundaries, because it's just very clear what everyone's job is and what's expected of everybody. I've got a few facts here that we're gonna talk about. So I don't know if to just tell you or if I should try and make you guess.
Ooh. Go on, make me guess.
Okay. I'm going to say the statement and you're going to tell me what percentage you think it is.
Okay.
Above 50 or below 50. So according to a 2023 report, over X% of independent professionals say client issues stem from unclear expectations at the start of a project and not from deliberate bad behavior.
I'm going to hope over 50. But I don't know how aware people are necessarily of that.
60% of independent professionals say client issues stem from unclear expectations. Okay. Oh, the next one in percentage. Because I haven't put it down in percentage. It would be, okay.
Are you doing maths?
I'm doing maths. Stand back. So X percentage of freelancers admit that they didn't use a contract in at least one of their past 5 projects. So we're not even talking about, like, this is like recent, like in the past 5, like the recent 5 projects. How many freelancers? What percentage of freelancers
that didn't use a contract in one of their last 5 projects? 25%.
Oh, that's close. So I've written it down here as 1 in 3. So yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah, they didn't use, which is more than you'd expect in at least one of their recent past 5 projects. They didn't use a contract.
Yeah, I mean, also I was thinking, I feel like that is so easy to do as an independent worker, to like kind of just be like, oh, I'm going to save the time on that.
Yeah.
This one time because it's a quick project, an easy one.
It's a quick project. Or I've worked with this person before. But it's a new
that's
project.
a good one.
And you're like, that's fine. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Even but the then, old like one might do, or like, but no.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I did think that I feel like maybe not most, but a fair amount of independent workers maybe work through like platforms that set these up for you. But that's total speculation.
I mean, yeah, lots of people do work through like, I think there's one, is it called WeWork or something like that?
There's Upwork.
Upwork is one I was thinking of. WeWork is something else. Yeah.
It's a shared working space.
There's a few. Yeah. Oh, you know WeWork.
I do know WeWork.
I only know WeWork because it's part of included in Revolut Premium. But there's no places in Malaga.
I bet there are places here. Oh my God, you should come and WeWork in Switzerland.
Yes. We do work in Switzerland.
Maybe we could use so many ideas.
So many ideas. Right, and the last one is the Project Management Institute reports that X% of all projects, so this isn't even of freelancers or not, all projects experience scope creep. So the Project Management Institute reports that percentage of all projects experience scope creep, which is over delivering for free. How many amount of projects? Over 50 or below 50?
I'm going to say over 50.
52% of all projects experience. So over half, only just, but over half of all projects experience scope creep, indicating how common it is for projects to extend beyond their initial parameters. Which is fine if they extend beyond their initial parameters, but the problem is that it's specific. Scope creep means that it's for free, so it's from, you know, I think it's very normal for budget. Yeah, exactly, that it stays in that budget that you're getting paid. Like I say, and this happens just as much at the office, that you start getting extra tasks and extra responsibilities that weren't in your initial contract, so you're still getting paid the same, but you're suddenly working more hours to finish all these extra projects, and you know you're still getting paid the same.
Or even if it's not more hours, like higher responsibility tasks that can maybe take a more psychological role on your on your position.
A friend of mine literally sent me a message saying, I actually can't with the stress of this job, and she's now working less hours than she was at her previous job, but like the amount of like responsibility that's being put on her, she did not expect, and it's just like, it's taking a toll.
Super interesting. And I guess, having scope creep also means that you've had a scope that's been put into place. But then I guess if you're talking about a project, especially if you're talking a number of hours or a number of or whatever the budget is, then you always need some kind of scope, maybe even if it isn't very strictly defined. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, have you ever been in any tricky situations where you've had to, you know, realize that things weren't, you know, going as they should, and you had to be like, okay, no, this isn't working, this isn't right, felt like you were being taken advantage of or undervalued, or
I don't think I've felt undervalued. That's a good question though. There was a point at the beginning of at the end of last year where I realized that I was putting too much pressure on myself to prove that I was doing enough. So that probably equates to maybe I wasn't feeling that I was doing enough, and if that's the case, then it was because I wasn't being told that I was doing a good job. And it really impacted my efficiency and my will to work.
Mental
my mental health, you know, in working terms, which obviously meant that I was doing worse work or I was under more stress than I had to be. And I actually had that conversation with my manager, and I explained, you know, I'm not doing well. And he was like, he didn't understand why, you know, like why, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, I'm putting too much pressure on myself. And he was like, what are you on about? Why? You do an amazing job. Like, what are you talking about? Makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And it was just so kind of, I guess it was obvious that you should, but obviously it wasn't obvious to me. And that made such a difference just to hear that from him. Yeah. That since then, I've been so much more chill, so much more confident, so much less touchy when it comes to all of the kind of check-ins that we were talking in about our last episode. If you feel like you know that your boss knows you're doing enough and that you're doing a good job, you're going to be so much less defensive about those kind of things, and so much less hard on yourself and stressed and pressure, blah, 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 if you know that they are considering you're doing a good job and that you're giving your all. Yeah. It was so important to me.
100%. Because how else are you supposed to know that you're, because I feel like both of us we're people that want to do our best. We want to give our all. We want to, if we do something, we want to do it right. And I feel like I suffer a lot from perfectionism, which is that constant being like, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And it's a self-imposed thing. Like clients will say, oh my God, I love it, on the first draft. And I'm like, no, it's not good enough. You know, like it's a completely self-imposed thing, but it's so easy to just lean into that and kind of get lost in like, I've got to do more. And it just turns into this like cycle that is so hard to break. Yeah. And then it gets to the point where people can say, oh, but you're doing a great job. And you're like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think also relatively recently there was a change in management in who my kind of direct manager was. And it was very different managing types, I guess. And suddenly the scopes were a lot more well defined. And I feel like I've been so much more efficient. And so much more confident in the work that I've been getting done, because I knew that I've hit that target. Milestone. I've hit that target. Yeah. Whereas before I didn't really have specific targets. It was like, oh, do this and then work on this and develop this and improve this and optimize this. And like, obviously as an engineer, it's one of your job, it's part of your job description is to optimize. You know, you have to optimize everything. Okay. Optimize everything. But you can always
whatever that means
to like,
to what extent am I optimizing it? Yeah,
exactly. So there was no like satisfaction of okay, I got that job done. Yeah. Whereas since this change in management, I've had maybe like 3 main goals that in every progress meeting I was able to talk about these 3 goals and where I am on those projects. And a couple of them I've actually completed, and I feel like it's the first time I've completed something in my job description. So I guess it's relatively off topic with like contracts in place, but you know, your job description is part of your contract, and feeling like you've accomplished the things that are in your job description.
Absolutely. And I think that's one big problem where people do get screwed over a lot, is that the job description that they sign up for says one thing, and the job turns out to have a completely different description. Like someone I know, she was hired to do social media. And then once she was doing that, for the same price, they started asking things like, can you also do the website? Can you also we haven't got a branding document. Can you put that together for us? And little things like that is like, that's fine. But your ad said social media, not general design department, which is basically what you're asking for, or marketing department even. And I feel like so many people have that scope creep within their job description, that the job that they signed up for and that they signed off of in their contract is to do X, Y, and Z, and then suddenly a year later, they realize they're doing, maybe still doing X, Y, and Z, but they're also doing, A, B, C, D, which wasn't anywhere, and I think that's so common. That's so common.
Yeah, that's that's something I've also encountered in my job. Like, also in small companies, it's always kind of general agreement that everybody should be able to do everything.
Whatever.
And like,
yeah,
I mean, I can, but if you want me to get progress and, you know, reach my targets, I need to not be spending time on that other thing that somebody else should actually be doing. You know,
100%. And that's something that in my field, I feel like, I probably in other ones as well, but I can speak from mine, is that it's something that people more and more want one person to do it all. Which I understand from a client's perspective or a boss's perspective or whatever, that if they know this one person works well and they can trust them, can I also ask them to do these other things? Because I know they're going to do it well.
As long as the contract evolves with that.
Exactly. And I feel like that's what often doesn't happen. It's like, oh, but you're such a good worker. Can't you also
you should be able to get all of this done at the same time. At the same level of quality.
And for the same budget and the same salary at the end of the month. And it's just, I think, and it's so easy for, as the person on the other end of it, to just say yes, because you're scared that if you say no, then they'll find someone else entirely. Or or they'll find someone else who does, or whatever. I mean, I know so many people that stood up for themselves in a work situation where they just kept getting asked to do more and more and more, to the point where they're like, we're just going to get, like, literally saying to them, we're just going to get rid of you because we can find someone more eager just out of uni. They'll do it free or
more
do it
eager,
for a lot cheaper.
More motivated.
Yeah.
That's
words like that. More motivated. Someone who values this job. My sister, she is a flight attendant, and when she started working at the company, they've got crazy kind of schedules and stuff, and they have, like, they're either, I guess you could say, on duty, or they're on call, or they're on time off. So when you're on call, in theory, you're not working, but if they called you, you should be able to be there from, maximum 2 hours. When you're off, you're off. But they would call her even on her days off and be like, oh, this has just happened, can you come in? And she was eager, excited, all the words that you can say, and she would just say yes to everything. 6 months later, she was like, I hope they don't renovate my contract because I actually can't anymore. So it's like,
because then that's expected of you.
Yeah, exactly. It's expected of you, and it's like, when you're starting out, it's so hard to set those limits, because she's like, if I say no, the next time I'm not going to be the first person they call, and I want to get the experience. I want to, in this case, this company, they fly all over the world. So she was like, what if it's a really cool destination that I want to go to? And then they're not going to call me because I said no last time, And it's like, I completely get it, but they know that her contract for the first 6 months is like an intern kind of contract, that if they get rid of her and get someone new, it's going to be the same. They're going to be eager, excited, whatever words you want to use, and they're just going to say yes to everything because they don't want to miss out, and they're ready and they're there for it. So it's like, where's the line between like that and like exploitation? And getting screwed over and just being taken advantage of for their gain and not your own. Like, it's such a fine line. And it's like, where, I mean, I had it as well when I started my business. It was like, anything someone would say, could you do this? I would say yes. Because it's like, I want to make it work. I need to get the money wherever I can. I can't afford to say no. And that led to lots of situations where I got totally screwed over, because a lot of them were totally my fault, in the sense of, like, it's a job description that I was like, yes, I can do it. I can learn on the job. And then I couldn't. And then the results were terrible. So then normally what happened was people didn't want to pay, So it all, it's so tricky. I've written down here 5 things that I think are kind of things that you can do to try and avoid getting screwed over. Like I say, it's hard, especially I think when you're starting out at a job. I don't think it's got anything to do with being young. I think it's just when you start at a new place, I feel like you have this feeling of wanting to prove yourself that I think can be very easily taken advantage of. And that's dangerous. So I feel like that's tricky. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you really do need to you understand that you might be missing opportunities, but I feel like in a way, in the long run, usually it's a better idea to stand up for yourself from the beginning, because then those kinds of things are not going to be expected of you in the future.
You're not,
and also that shows
precedent. That's
exactly. It shows a personality that's like, okay, if you know how to stand up to stand up for yourself, they're likely to trust you in other situations where you need to stand up for the company, for example.
Absolutely.
But it is a really tough one. I absolutely hear that. Especially for you, if you're trying to get a client, is making a contract going to make it more complicated? Is it going to make them not want to work with you and work with somebody it's going to be a lot quicker to set it up? Or it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I've put to try to avoid getting screwed over in business is to document everything. So not just with the contract, try and keep records of important conversations so that you have that to go back on, which can be really difficult when you do talk about things in meetings that aren't recorded or anything. But try, and what I normally do is after a meeting, I will send, whether it's phone call, in person, video call, whatever, send them a rundown of what we've talked about and kind of
this is
what
important.
It is. So important. So document everything, anything, any reviews, anything, just because you just never know. And it's not even from a petty kind of way or anything. It's just to be able to say confidently, no, this is what we said. And it's fine if you've changed your mind. That's absolutely fine. Everyone should change their mind at least once a day. It's fine. It's good for you. But let's adjust things,
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But it's so important.
Yeah, even at the beginning if you're discussing, right now I'm working on a whole IP situation. So we've been figuring out intellectual property rights on certain things. This process has lasted well over a year now.
Yeah.
Which means there's not necessarily been contracts all the way. So a lot of the time it's been a contract is being it's in progress. Yeah. But you need to in the meantime document everything that happens. Yeah. Because you never know what situation you're going to be up against.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And with massive things like IP, you could get an email in 3 years from now being like, this date, I did this, and where were you at that moment? And you'd be like, well, here I was, and this is the situation at that point, and this is what we said, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So documenting everything along the way, like you say, is so important.
So important. And it sounds like it could be petty or whatever, but I think it's just to be able to protect yourself. And I think, that's just, especially in business, I think it's just a no-brainer. I've put number 2 is just know your rights. Just be aware of what are local labor laws. What should your minimum, not wage,
rate,
or whatever be. How one of my friends, for example, she got totally screwed over. She went to, I think it was Mallorca, possibly, to be a photographer for a hotel. And it sounded amazing on paper. It was like, you're going to be working X amount of hours, and, you eat at the hotel, you've got a room here so that you don't have to pay for food, for accommodation, any of that. And when she got there and they gave her timetable, it was broken in two. I think that's how you say it in Spanish. I don't know if that's how you say it in English, but basically she had 2 long breaks, which meant she worked, for example, I obviously don't remember details, but she worked, for example, 8 till 11, break for an hour and a half 1 till 4, break for an hour, and then 5 till 8. So she was working 12-hour days because it wasn't enough time to do anything in that hour and a half. Sometimes it was 2 hours. But on the contract, it said she was working 8 hours or whatever it was, you know, which is what she got told. But it was literally, she was like, I'm getting home and it's like, it's 10 o'clock at night and I've not done anything that isn't work. And when she had a conversation with one of her friends who was studying law, she was like, that's totally illegal. They can't do that. And she was like, what? So stay informed. Know you're right. So that if someone presents something that seems totally off, you can say, I know this isn't right from the get-go, you know, and not get, she was working like that for 2 months until she was like, I actually can't. And somebody said, because that's actually illegal. You know, I think, of course you can.
I think a big part in that, because obviously you can't expect to always know all of the laws unless you're a law major or whatever. But I think something really important about when you're any kind of negotiation, any kind of contract, setting up any kind of collaboration, you can always say, let's put a pause on this and come back to it tomorrow. Yeah. Always. You can always say that. It doesn't matter if you've been talking for 5 minutes. Go away, inform yourself, get all the information you need and come back and have a constructive conversation knowing your rights. Exactly.
Don't feel like you need to sign things and stuff from the get-go without taking a look at it. Yeah, making sure just and things change all the time. All the time. Like as a freelancer, the laws on people who are self-employed change like every 4 months. And it's like, you know, you might be paying something and suddenly you start paying more and you don't understand why. And then sometimes it's less. Sometimes there's something new that you can apply for that gives you a grant, whatever. I think staying informed of all that kind of stuff, just so that you don't get surprised by anything as well. I think that it's not like suddenly someone brings it up of like, oh yeah, this is how this is how it is. And you can be like, no, it's not. Or are you sure? And that's fine to ask. Are you sure? And like you say, can we come back to this after I've had time to, even if you want to throw out fancy words like consult with my attorney.
Yeah.
It's fine. And if they freak out at that, maybe that's an issue.
That's a red flag.
That's a red flag.
Yeah. You should never feel pressured into signing anything without being 100% sure. That's doesn't matter how fast things need to move or
no, exactly. Things that are never have to go so fast that you can't take a moment to read the small print. The small print. That's the was like la letra pequeña. So I don't think it's small letters. The small print. Yeah, exactly. And then going off of that, it's quite similar. I've put be proactive. So it's just, we talked about it, I think, a bit in the last episode as well, that when something doesn't feel right, when there's an issue, just talk about it. Just go to your manager and say, look, I'm feeling like this. If you have, if it is something like, for example, in the case of my friend where she was just feeling absolutely exhausted at the end of each day, she obviously didn't address it as soon as, because she was just thinking, one big fear of hers. This is how it is. This is how it is. And one big fear of hers was, it was a summer contract. I don't know if it was 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever. And she was really worried that it would look really bad if she left halfway through of a short contract that did have a deadline. It wasn't not unlimited,
indeterminate.
Yeah.
I also have the reference in a different language.
Yeah. We're both thinking of it in the wrong language. But yeah, it was this is a 4-month contract or whatever it was. So she was worried which is why she didn't, go up and say, look, I have an issue with this, because she was just worried that they would chuck her out, whatever. But I think maybe, if you feel like your workload has gotten a lot bigger, if you feel like there's something off about, how the contract you signed versus the reality, whatever, I think just going about it as it doesn't have to be maybe, unless management is doesn't care about you. It doesn't have to be a attack on them. It can be this doesn't feel right to me, or
this doesn't work for me.
Or you don't, even if you've looked into it and you realize that it's wrong and illegal or whatever, maybe not going to like, I've talked with my attorney and you have to change my contract. It doesn't even have to be like that, but just address issues when they arise, and just be like, this doesn't feel right. Can we have a second look at this? Whatever. I feel like saying it on the moment, nipping it in the bud. And even if it is like you said before, this doesn't feel right. Can I, go and sleep on it and come back to you tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then come back with a counter.
I'm thinking about like kind of stories I've heard from other people. And I feel like taking the time also to set up a contract or set up whatever structured agreement you need, it shows also your dedication to that project. Like if you're planning on staying for 2 months, you just kind of put up with anything, right? If that's all I mean, obviously in the scope of whatever length, but if you're taking the time to be like, okay, no, this needs to work differently, I need to be sure of this, it shows that it's because you're in it for the long run. You want to set it up properly now because you are planning on being there in 3 years when something could go wrong. Whereas if you're just kind of checking it out, no, you're not likely to spend the time on making a contract, and because you're not really that into the project and it's not really worth it. Yeah, it's not really worth it for you. So it can also be a proof of how dedicated you are to that project, to that company, to that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think we should ever be embarrassed to say, I want to set up a more structured agreement so that we know that we're both aligned, and we can make sure that this is as constructive as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4 is all about the boundaries. So it's maintaining work-life balance, which we've said before. We will do a whole episode about this. But I feel like it can very easily happen that either from a innocent or not so innocent place, that employers or clients can try and like I say, try sounds like it's on purpose, but they may blur a little bit where work ends and your personal life starts. And like I say, this might be because if it's, for example, in my situation, it happens with clients, normally it's either their business or their passion project. It's their everything. So for them, it is a all the time thing. So they may send me messages at unreasonable times or want to do, things that are not right. And normally it's not coming from a bad place. It's just that they're thinking about it. So they'll say, oh, I'm just sending you this message. I only have one phone and I need to get a personal phone and a work phone. I'm very aware of this because I get a WhatsApp, whether it's my mom or a client, come through the same phone. So it can be really hard to not open the message when someone sends it. I think you have very clear where work ends, your personal life begins, and just make that very clear to your employer, to your client, whoever. I think is a big one for not getting screwed over, because I feel like if you do take the call at 7 when you finished at 5, that's not ever going to be like something that your employer's going to be like, oh, but no, but we should keep her on because, she answers the phone.
And if it is, then it's not that's an issue.
Absolutely.
It's something else you have to address.
In something that you were saying before, like, I feel like with the previous point about being proactive, I feel like a company that cares about their staff is definitely going to want to make sure that you're happy with your contract, with everything, because it makes their life easier. If it's a good company, they're going to want to make sure that your contract is set up right, that you are happy at work, that whatever, because it makes their life so much easier than an employee that's complaining all the time. So the same with work-life balance. I feel like if they might blur the line unintentionally or intentionally. You never know.
I think that's
but it's up to
big
you
point. Exactly. I think that's I guess when you're an employee at a company, maybe you could say, okay, the company should also take responsibility on not sending you messages or emails or phone calls at ungodly hours. But I also think that it is your responsibility to set those boundaries as an employee or as a freelancer, or you're in charge of your boundaries. People are always going to try and push their boundaries because everybody's trying to get things done. And they may have pressure from somebody else to try and get something done, so they're going to send that email. It's on you to set those boundaries and to stick to them. So if you do get a call, if you finish, like, for example, sometimes it depends on the call that I'm receiving, but if I get a call at 5:01, I don't pick up. I'm like, I understand you are still working. I'm not. I understand that you don't know that. So
exactly.
It's on me to not pick up that call and be like the next morning, hey, you called me yesterday, what was up? I'm available now for talk about it. And like, to not blame that person, like you say. It's not coming from a place of trying to get you work more. Especially if it's your client, maybe they are unaware of the times that you're likely that you should be on, or your working times. And to set that boundary and be as clear as you can about it. Hey, I wasn't available at that time, but I'm available now. Let's talk now,
Absolutely. And I feel like in most scenarios, you don't pick up and then they go, oh, of course I didn't pick up. It's whatever time. Whereas the other way around, they're not going to be like, oh, thank you for picking up. So, yeah. And the last one, which is a little throwback to our first ever episode I've put leverage your network. So basically, to just always build on your relationships with colleagues, mentors, people that you meet that are in the same kind of industry as you, just because come on. he dives up and then just hides. Because I feel like, not just in case you ever want to change jobs or anything like that, which could be the case, or in my case, it's just constantly getting new clients, so it's just, you just never know. So that it's always nice to have the option to be able to choose your clients. So the bigger your network and the more people coming to you, the more you can say, I want to work with you, not with you, and avoid working in situations where you might get screwed over. But also to have people who work in similar fields as you that can say, that's not right. Take a look at that. That's not something. And to be able to, use your network, whether it be, like I say, to change job, which is the more obvious, or just to have that kind of support
advice,
and be like, that's actually not, that's wrong. And then, then it can take you to good number 2 and know your rights or whatever. But, it's just a way to be able to check in with other people who are more aware, maybe.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things when we decided to set up this podcast was one of the things we would love to create is a place for you to go and find people, to get people's point of view that are totally external to your situation. And you can obviously rest anonymous if you want to, because a lot of the time you don't want to disclose, or you don't want people to know who you're talking about, which is totally understandable. But to have different people's point of view, and then you can choose who to, you'll have everybody's input, and then you can choose what to take into account and what not to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to create a kind of a community of people that are interested in this subject and that have either no experience, which can also be handy, to lots of experience in domains or similar domains, to be like, oh yeah, I had this issue a couple months ago and this is what I did, or oh, I think you should do this, I think,
and just be able to like learn from each other's experiences and mistakes, or just life experience. Like my someone I know, she is setting up a foundation. And for it, she wants to do merchandising, and someone she knows have a company, and they've worked, their big thing is hoodies. So he went through so many different, what's the word? Not
suppliers.
Suppliers, yeah, to find the perfect hoodie that's, was nice quality, blah, blah. So he was able to pass on that information to her and not lose 6 months of, asking for samples and getting them and receiving them. And then I made this mistake, make sure you don't make that. And it's a way, it just makes life so much easier. Like, if you know people that you can be like, hi, I'm doing this, does anyone have any experience? And just make life that much simpler wherever we can. Yeah. I think makes such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where humankind is got an advantage, is that we're able to communicate, we're able to pass down our knowledge. So
Exactly.
Let's put that into action.
Totally. So to finish off, the last thing I have is a couple of listeners' questions. It's kind of stories mixed in with questions. So somebody said, I got legit screwed over by my first business partner. Ended up taking him to court and settled for less than half I was owed. I provided him a loan to buy inventory, and as well as my services as an accounting professional. I wrote out a really long message going into the details, but decided that it wasn't relevant. As entrepreneurs, we're going to get screwed over at some point. It really hurts emotionally and financially. How do you deal with stuff like this?
Make contract. Oh my God. But I guess he did go to court. So
he did go to court, and it just ended up being, I settled for less than half I was owed. And the toll that must have taken also by, it's someone that you trust, because it's not even like a client that you've gone into business with. It's a business partner. But he says it's his first business partner. So I guess you're both learning, and God knows what the situation was. But I think it's so
easy to have like a fun idea and be like super motivated on a project, working with somebody that you enjoy working with. Yeah. And it's so easy to be like, oh, this is going to be great. We'll take half and half because that's what's normal. Or you're both thinking your own thing. Yeah. And then everything go fine until there's money. Yeah. And if there's a big money that comes in, people are going to start getting
greedy.
Not greedy, but like, suddenly maybe that's worth more than the friendship. Yeah. Because maybe somebody could really need that money, and be like, no, I think I deserve more. And that's now worth more to me than our friendship, which unfortunately can often be the case in people's perspectives. Especially if that's what motivates them, if it's the money side of things that motivates them. It can just happen so often. So really, from the beginning, get a contract in place, be really clear about expectations about how that's going to go about, and then you're set up for this situation. So that this situation and not have to lose.
And I think also, because like we were saying, they may have had a contract in place. We don't really know exactly what went down, but I think, so he says, as entrepreneurs, we're going to get screwed over at some point. I feel that's a bit of a pessimistic way to look at it. Probably things will go wrong because you're learning and it's just normal. Maybe, because the question is, how do you deal with it? So once it's happened, how do you deal with it? I think as much as it can still be frowned upon, I feel like just going to therapy and talking about it is always going to be beneficial, especially when it's something like this where it's your first business venture, your first business partner. It can be such a hit, and it can, like you were saying before, of like if a manager has an issue with an employee, and that can be hard to then trust a future employee even though they've done nothing wrong. It's the same if you go into another business venture with a new partner. Are you going to be projecting all this stuff that they don't deserve at the end of the day onto them from your bad experience? So working through it and talking about it with a professional, I think, is always, if it's happened, and it's just learn from it however you can.
I think that's the big one. I mean, all of the things that as entrepreneurs, I think the kind of the definition as an entrepreneur is somebody that takes risks and goes for things and is determined to make something happen. And you're often going to find your way through the world and how it works by making mistakes. And even if it's a big one, you got to take that as, wow, I've just learned a big lesson and I'm now a better entrepreneur because of it.
Yeah. And also something that I think is really important that I try and put in practice also with personal life, because I can be so hard on myself, is you're not an idiot for it happening to you once. Maybe the third time it happens to you, you could start questioning things. But the first time it happens, you learn from it and you take whatever you need to take from it so that it doesn't happen again. I think when something horrible has happened, the first thing you do is, how could I have let this happen? Which is so normal. I feel like...
Yeah, obviously if you knew that, you wouldn't have let it happen.
You wouldn't have let it happen, exactly. So again, if it happens a second, if it happens a third, if it happens a fourth, the old saying, cheat me once or whatever it is, shame on you, but cheat me twice, shame on me. So I think we're human. We're, as much as we can, try and learn from the community around us. There are some lessons that just need to happen to you personally, and you just take it, move on, and learn from it, and then put whatever you learn into practice so that it doesn't happen again. I saw this really lovely quote that was saying, well, not quote, I guess just text, that said something like, nobody talks about the bit in the middle. So the bit at the beginning that's really exciting and you've got all the enthusiasm and, it's all just new and shiny. And obviously the end is amazing because you've reached it, etc. Whatever it is that you're trying to do. But the middle, when all the excitement fades and all that's left is just hard work, that's where most people fail. It's not at the beginning. It's not, setting something up isn't the hard bit. It's sticking to it. And when having that like drive and goal that when it gets tough, you can just
absolutely. I was having that exact conversation with my co-founder yesterday. I think that's what sets apart. Honestly, I think that's what sets apart most of the successful people is the people that are able to stick at it when it gets hard. Yeah. Because I think it's so easy to be like, okay, it's not worth it anymore, And obviously it's going to depend on how much you've risked, how much you put into that, which is also a good reason to take a bit of risk, because then you're going to be more tempted to stick at it. But I think the successful people, a lot of the time, which it comes back to like the piece of advice, I think, I can't remember which episode, maybe it was our kind of context episode at the very beginning, was what's our piece of advice to other people or to ourselves is, you can do anything if you work hard enough at it. Yeah. Obviously there are exceptions. You can't create magic, but because it already exists, you're just a muggle. Exactly. But I do think that is a big factor that sets apart people that go really far, is people that were really willing to stick at it when it got tough.
Yeah. When the excitement
and that
fades.
Includes getting screwed over and it being really hard work. And like you say, and you're not really that motivated anymore because you just have all this hard work and you don't really see the end. That's the hard part.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be able to stick at it then is what sets you apart.
Yeah. Right. The next one I've got is actually, so the first one was more entrepreneurial. This is more employee. I developed a marketing strategy that significantly boosted our company's sales. However, during the annual review, my manager presented my work as his own and received a promotion. I felt overlooked and undervalued. How should employees handle situations where their contributions are overshadowed or stolen?
It hurts. I guess it hurts. That comes,
just thinking about that.
If you want to take action on that, then documentation is really important. But if it's just like you don't want to necessarily drag that person down for your own benefit, that's really tough.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard because it just comes down to like in the next term when you go to start working on something, you're like, what's the point? Someone else is going to take the credit. Why should I bother? That would be the mindset that you're kind of going into, because if you're not getting recognized for what you're doing,
What's the point of doing it? Yeah.
Yeah, like we were talking, like when you do something, you want your manager to say, good job. And in this case, they were like, good job, I'll take that for myself. Like, that's just so horrible. I honestly, how should employees handle situations where their contributions are overshadowed or stolen?
Talk about it with your manager, and honestly, maybe talk about it with your manager's manager.
Yeah, it's
stand
so
up for
hard
yourself,
because
man. Stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself, but definitely do it. If you've followed our steps, you do have the documents to back it up, so it doesn't just sound like you're jealous and you're trying to bring them down. It's so hard. It's so hard to just be like, I'm happy for you, but you know that marketing strategy that she got promoted for, well...
I can really see that situation happening though, because if your manager is the sales director, for example, and he's asked you to work on a marketing strategy and you're the person in charge of marketing and he's your manager, you develop that marketing strategy, which gets more sales. So the KPIs that he's hit or the objectives, targets that he's hit is thanks to your marketing strategy, but it's his sales.
Yeah.
It's a really tough one.
So hard. I think the problem there is presenting my work as his own, like that sentence, because I feel like the manager maybe could get a promotion because his team has worked well.
That's true.
And his team, he's managed in a way that somebody in his team has come up with something that's, had a significant impact for the better on the company. So he or she isn't a bad manager. The problem is that it wasn't that he got a promotion and you also got a little extra bonus and a thank you. That's the issue, because I felt overlooked and undervalued. It's not I deserved that promotion.
Yeah.
It's which is completely valid. So
absolutely.
So hard. But yeah, I think you do just have to bring it up and just be like, this isn't coming from a vengeful. I'm
not going to help you there. I have no idea.
Place, but yeah, this isn't right. And like, I know, yeah, it is really hard though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really happy for your promotion, and I'm really glad we were able to work on that together.
And I felt this way, like the same way I felt overlooked and undervalued because this was something that I'd worked really hard on. What can we do so this doesn't happen again? And hopefully then they go, oh, that wasn't on purpose.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be the case. Maybe they'd be like, oh, I totally didn't see it like that, and I understand. And either I'll keep that in mind for our next times, which could be a situation that, or I'm going to have a word with management. I think you deserve to come with me for my promotion or something like that,
Yeah.
Be valued for what you brought. And just the simple, I'll make sure management knows.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to make sure to pass on that message, that you did a really great job on this.
Yeah. All right. And last one. I run a small web development agency. A client kept requesting additional features beyond our initial agreement without offering additional payment. When I addressed it, they threatened to leave a bad review. How can businesses manage and prevent scope creep while maintaining client relationships?
Start correctly. Start in the right situation.
Yeah.
Get it out at the beginning, not at the end.
We have had some clients that will just push their luck. They will, again, I never quite know if it comes from a bad place or not, but they will ask, oh, can you also do this? And you just have to, on the moment, say, oh, we can do this, but it's not included in our initial agreement, contract, whatever. Would you like to add it? And it's just, I think, if you've set up a contract, then you can refer back to it. If you haven't, that's where the issue is. If you haven't, or even if there isn't a contract, but at least, like we said, to keep documents of everything, of
what your scope is.
Yes. That at what point in our meetings, these are the points that we took away from it. So that these additional things that you're asking of me aren't things that we've originally talked about. So we can talk about it. We can talk about how we could incorporate it and just try and make it as a positive thing. Like, oh yeah, of course we can do that. Like, let's talk about how we could incorporate that into what we already have.
That's a really good, I think that's a really good answer. So even if you haven't, okay, if you haven't set up that contract and you haven't set up that really clear definition of your scope, come at it as like a positive. Oh, absolutely, we can do that, no problem. Let's have a conversation about how we can incorporate that into our offer. Even if then that turns into, oh, but I thought that it should be included anyway, then you can kind of be like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense to me for this reason. But then trying to avoid a bad review, I think as long as you're polite and clear on everything, and especially if it at least from that moment,
like what you said of if the client thought it was included, you thought it wasn't, I would suggest, obviously from that moment you're learning, okay, we should have put a contract in place. So for this specific situation, to get out of this without getting a bad review, you could say, always take their side. I completely see how you could have seen that. I am so sorry I didn't make this clearer. As it isn't a part of our initial agreement, we can include it at a lower rate because it was my mistake. I'm so sorry, and that way, or even you could say, it's just for free is just never a good way. I think with a discount is the way to go. Even if you do say, we'll do it a 60% discount because it was completely my fault. I think that's the way really to go about it. You say that you're right. I'm so sorry. I didn't make it clear. Take the blame, take the hit, and next time you're going to be making a contract, so it's not going to happen.
I think trying not to be proud in that kind of situation is so important. Stick up for yourself, but don't do it because it's hurt your feelings. Do it in whatever way is going to make the situation more constructive for yourself and your client in that situation. Like, you can take the blame per se, as long as you can use that in a way to be like, oh, I totally understand. Like you say, you're right. I'm definitely going to make this more clear in the future. Thank you for bringing that up. And since that's the case, then we can offer this for this massive discount, and then it'd be like, oh, I got a discount,
Yeah, exactly. And then they're going away happy. They're like, oh, and I won, so they're going to leave you a good review, which is so important when you're a small business. Like, reviews are everything. So it is such a tricky one to try and avoid them. And I mean, I've had bad situations, and it's just always say, yes, you're right to the client, and try and figure out a way. And you're not going to make that mistake again. But that is everything from how to not get screwed over in business. So cool. Something that I think happens just as much whether you're an entrepreneur or not, entrepreneur or employee. I think it's something that can so easily happen, maybe even more so, I don't know, as an employee. I feel like it may be harder to navigate and to stand up for yourself because you're worried. Because as an entrepreneur, if you lose a client, you lose a client. As an employee, if you lose your job, you lose your job. Serious problem. It's a serious problem. So I think maybe it feels like it.
It's maybe easier to think, oh, that's just how things are. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you're having to figure it out anyway. But as an employee, if you get, it's a massive company that's been hiring for 20 years, and then you get this contract and you're like, that looks a bit off. And they're like, oh no, but this is how we've done it for the last 20 years. Be like, that's probably the issue. But it is harder to go against.
Exactly. To stand up for, and just it can feel like more of a risk. Obviously it always depends. As an entrepreneur, you can have different kind of clients. Some people work on like just with one business, even though they're an entrepreneur, they work with one client that's just very big, and they work as an outside kind of source. So it obviously can be different, but I feel like you can feel like you've got more options as an entrepreneur. But it can happen to anyone in anything in life, not just business. So I think the tips kind of translate into anything. Maybe the last one of networking turns into friends rather than just network. Have people to talk about. But we would love to know your stories so that we could all learn from them and not have to experience the blow ourselves. But we would love to hear any stories, if they can be funny, even better. We at least get a laugh out of it. But we would love to know if you would like to send them in and we can read them out. We mentioned in our last episode that we're going to be incorporating shorter episodes where we just revisit things that topics that we've already talked about, if they don't warrant a whole new episode, which might sometimes be the case. But if we do just have bits to add because we've had things come up for ourselves or because we've had stories come in or whatever, do little 10, 15, 20-minute episodes where we just revisit these things with a bit more just stories rather than so much conversation about it.
We come up against new situations in our working lives that we refer to our episodes on those subjects.
Or maybe have a guest that has some powerful things to say about something we've talked about and would like to come on and just give us a different perspective. So if any of these things sound like something that you might want to do, you can let us know on all of our social media platforms, We Will Manage or We Will Manage Podcast. Or send us a message at wewillmanagepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you learned something. And if not, just at least enjoyed us chatting for a while. And we'll see you next time. Do we know what our next episode is?
We do. Next time we're diving into the art of communication.
Love it.
Beautiful.
I mean, we've come back to it. So much to say. We've referenced it in every single episode, I'm pretty sure. So I was glad that we've got one all for it. But
deep dive.
See you there.
So I look forward to that.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye.
See you then. Bye.